This is Jimmy Cab's Tape to Broadcast 5150 interview series in Bulldozer Magazine. This is very interesting for me. I am here with Noctuary from Los Angeles. In 1995, there was a new wave of American black metal that was really breaking it on their own and creating what I'd like to say maybe innovative, somewhat left field.
I'll take that.
Somewhat not following what was at that time, not mimicking or not following in any way what was being done.
Right.
First of all, let me introduce you.
I'm Joe Van Fossen.
I'm Steve Nelson.
Talk to me about 1995 and when you formed Noctuary.
Right.
What was it about at that time that you decided to completely go left field of the not only the American black metal scene, but also what was going on at that time?
You know, for me, it wasn't so much a conscious decision. It was just I took my influences, which was like, old new wave British heavy metal, old LA thrash metal, like Metallica, Megadeth.
Really?
Oh yeah, and Iron Maiden, all that kind of stuff. Took that, that's what I grew up with. That's what I knew. But I also love death metal. I love black metal. And I wanted to do like a dark black metal, death metal kind of band and use naturally I write with my influences. So because I wanted to do a heavier style, it's still that old influence kind of stayed with me. So that's why I think it just kind of turned out the way it did for us.
Do you think that's the reason why at that time in the underground you were getting such recognition?
Yeah, I think so, because a lot of people would point that out, that we, as a black metal band, it sounds kind of like maybe Emperor and Iron Maiden. Yeah, something kind of unique. It wasn't really conscious, like we wanted to be so different, but it was one of those things that just kind of happened, just with the fact that we had so many different influences outside of the black metal scene. We didn't want to sound like black metal bands from Norway or from Europe or anything. We just kind of took what we liked and did our own thing with it, really.
Why? Because at that time there were so many bands.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate when something new hits and causes such a stir, it influences so many people, but unfortunately they try to mimic that. Instead of getting that inspiration to take it to the next level, they're doing the same shit. How are you able to not fall into that, and why are you determined not to be that way?
Again, it wasn't so much of a conscious decision. I think it's just that I like so many different bands from that area that I would kind of mimic all of them rather than just like one particular sound or one particular style. Like bands that are, I think, underappreciated, especially like when you compare them to like the legends of the scene, like Mayhem and Emperor. Those guys are the big time. That's what everyone wanted to be like. We were like listening to bands like Abigor, Rotting Christ. We were listening to more like Greek black metal, more German, Vedwen's End, kind of more avant-garde stuff too. But then again, throw it in there with our core influences of being, Metallica, Slayer, and Iron Maiden, and that's kind of how we came up with our own sound.
Is that the same for you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm actually irrelevant to this conversation until like 2000.
Yeah.
I wasn't there at the beginning, so I'm
But he has the same influences.
Yeah, it's the same influences. Like when I joined, those are what the bass lines are patterned after. It's very, very maideny, and I'm not ashamed to cop to it. I mean, that's how we do it, and it's all about harmonies. The whole point of having, for me anyway, like my bass line is supposed to not copy them at all. Like I'm actually supposed to be my own instrument. I'm not just there, providing low end.
Exactly. So. I'd say the bass drives a lot of the sound. It's its own thing. It's a totally different melody or
that
harmony.
Rhythm section you have, even back then, was very...
Yeah, we wanted to do something special. We didn't want it just to be like a guy playing root notes and being like disposable, We wanted something unique about that part of it, so...
What's interesting for me is with so much talent and so much, the music in itself was so articulate. You could tell that you were all very good musicians at a period where no one, if you recall at that time, it wasn't cool to be a musician to show.
Yeah.
Was that another factor that you didn't think about, or talk to me about that?
Yeah, I would say, and going back to your first point, the whole thing about us not sounding like other things is that part of that was a rejection of the culture of the time. We didn't want to be like another American band that wanted us to be like, everyone was pretending they were Norwegian or had some kind of Norwegian background because that was the thing. Everyone wanted to be like a Norwegian band, and we were part of that scene, that early, like kind of, I would say second wave of American black metal scene that kind of really embraced the fact that we were from the U.S., that we were doing something unique and different, and that the U.S. had something to offer that maybe the Norwegian bands weren't doing the same way, or the Scandinavian bands weren't doing the same way. Not that, I mean, obviously we're hugely influenced by those bands too. We love those bands. It's just that we wanted to carve our own niche, and we wanted our contemporaries, like we followed that same path of doing our own thing and not worrying too much about what the worldwide scene thought of us, just kind of just doing our own thing here and figuring it out.
Supposed to be.
I think so. Yeah.
What's also interesting is that at that time, you were getting very well reviews and you were being recognized for this, but at the same time, such minimal support, man.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we had a good label, Lost Disciple. They were really behind us. Like they push us as much as they can. But with a smaller label, it's like you can only go so far with it, right? Exactly. And we probably didn't work as hard as we should have. We should have probably been on the road a lot more. We did play a lot of the major festivals, but we weren't doing full U.S. tours back then. We were doing kind of regional stuff. We probably should have been on the road a little bit more.
Fest,
yeah,
and things of that nature.
Yeah. The
New England hardcore metal festivals, stuff like that.
Yeah. So we're getting great, huge fests, but we weren't really hitting everywhere in between, and I think that kind of hurt us too back then.
Would it be safe to say that there's a lot of, unfortunately, you fall into that vein of ahead of their time, so to speak, where maybe they weren't getting what you're doing, but they dug it?
I think so. I mean, we had the fans that really get it. They kind of appreciated us for being different. We had the fans. We also have a lot of fans that like our earlier stuff, which was a little bit more minimal than our later stuff. And I think, I don't know if there is a time for us, because even now, especially with our new music, I think we're not like avant-garde. Like, if you know, it's a shirt virus, right? I love avant-garde music. We're different, but we're not to the point where we're strange. We're more different but familiar, and it's hard to place us, I think. Our logo is obviously very black metalish. It was done by Christoph, who did, you know, the Emperor's logo and everything like that. So it kind of places us in making people think we're maybe not marketing ourselves properly. And I agree that may be a little bit of a...
We're doing such a good job right now.
Yeah. Like, I think, like, the problem is people have a misconception about our sound, and maybe they expect one thing and then we give them another, and some people like it, some people kind of are taken aback by it and they don't know what to think about it. So I understand that, but like I said, we just do our own thing. We hope people will like it, and if they do, great. If they don't, that's tough. We could only do what we could do.
What's interesting is that you ended up splitting up, and such a long time went on before you guys reformed. Why reform now, and do you feel that now not only black metal audience but extreme music fans will be able to comprehend, appreciate, and understand what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I guess. Well, we quote unquote broke up, but we always had like a lot of material that we never recorded, and it was a plan to do it, right?
And there still is a plan, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, still a plan to do it.
Yeah, there's definitely a plan.
Talk to me about that.
The new material. Well,
are you guys writing new material now as Noctuary?
Actually, we haven't written new material, but we have almost an album's worth of new material, and we'll be playing at least 3 or 4 songs tonight, I think. Yeah.
Now, just to clarify, this is new material that you wrote then?
Back then, yeah.
That you're writing now, that you're performing now, but was written back?
I mean, some of this was written back in 2000, 2002, 2005. We actually recorded like a few promos here and there. Probably changed some of them a little bit since then, I think. But yeah,
some of it we've forgotten.
Some of it we've forgotten. We need to kind of refresh on. But yeah, it's stuff we wrote back then, and then stuff that we'll be writing coming up too.
Do you feel it still represents the band now in 2015?
I think so, because back then, I mean, we were doing something really different from even what we were doing in 2000. Yeah, exactly. And then so I think we kind of progressed even from there. The reason we did Recollection was because it was taking so long to get this album done. We wanted to put out 3 songs that weren't necessarily in that same vein of the new stuff, but kind of a good transition between what we did off When Fires Breed Blood and then what we're going to be doing on the next album. Yeah, so that's why we did that.